Do you ever have so many project plans in your head that you absolutely really, right at this very second, have to do right now, that you just give into the impulse to do them all at once? Because same. Welcome to the workroom. Today we're just going to be doing a little bit of design work, a bit of planning, a bit of sketching. Let's at least hang out in the workroom together, get some stuff done, make some cool stuff. I obviously have a whole list of projects. I think last I counted there were like 25 projects on there or something stupid. I have at this point 3 different categories of project. I have some alteration slash thrift flip type things of garments that I recently purchased secondhand that need a little bit of alteration, both, you know, size-wise, fit-wise, as well as, ooh, this would look cool if I did this to it. I have a very long list of projects that I would like to make for my own wardrobe. Most of my wardrobe is 1890s through like 1910. I do also want to keep up with my historical reconstructions because although I don't wear, for example, an 18th century robe à la française every day of my life, those garments are still very useful to, as I make them, teach me the skills and the practical applications of the things that I read about in the texts that help me learn about the history of dress. When I was making a list of all the garments that I would like to reconstruct for my own collection, it pretty much consisted of every decade of history between like the 10th century all the way up to World War I, and then like upper class and lower class, and then some of the menswear and all of the women's wear. It's a lot, and it's going to take a lifetime to get through, but you know what? We're gonna have a good time. So what on earth are we up to? I may or may not have done an exceedingly stupid thing a couple of weeks ago in which I happened to find myself on the Truly Victorian website and may or may not have accidentally purchased a bunch of patterns. This I thought would be a good reintroduction to the world of sewing project. The patterns that I bought consist of a split skirt. Oh yes, I bought a jacket. They call this actually a ripple bodice, but it's basically, it's an 1890s jacket with large 1890s sleeves. You cannot see what this is from the pattern shapes. This is what's called a princess skirt. The 1890s slash early Edwardian period have such great skirt opportunities. I have also been having a little peek through all of my books. I won't say it's a goal to go through and make literally everything in Patterns of Fashion 5, but I won't also say that that's not a goal. This book has been out now for nearly 3 years, and I have yet to actually make something from it. Actually, that's not true. One of my favorite pairs of stays in this book, it's this pair here. This is the pair of stays that's in the School of Historical Dress collection. Now, herein lies the rub, as we say in Shakespeare times. The patterns are very beautifully given to us in this book, because obviously it's a pattern book. However, also included in this book is Luca Costigliolo, who is one of the dress historians who worked on this book, translated and deciphered and figured out the original 18th century drafting system for stays. So what I would like to do for this project is do this drafting system and actually draft the stays, but draft the pieces to look like this. Basically to use this page as a reference to say, okay, so these are the shapes that I'm going for. This is like the neckline configuration and sort of the style with the front lacing here that I'm going for, but the actual drafting of the stays I want to do myself. Obviously, if you saw my fabric shopping video, you know that I have some of the materials for this, but I don't have, I think I'm missing a couple of interlining layers. Once I finish the Mary Poppins project, I obviously have kind of free reign to kind of just do whatever I want. So one of the projects that I'm most excited about is the idea of a split skirt. If you don't know what a split skirt is, basically it is a skirt that was designed for cycling, women's cycling, when that started to become more of a thing in the 1890s, but it was kind of a little bit unconventional to wear fully bifurcated garments, but also you kind of need to if you want to ride a bicycle. So the split skirt is this new innovation that would basically button up the front, and behind the buttons is kind of basically pants, but you can also button it back up when you get off the bicycle and be presentable to polite society. So this idea was partially brought on by my escapades on the Truly Victorian website, so thanks for that, I guess. The last time I worked with a Truly Victorian pattern was a couple of years ago when I did that modernized Edwardian walking skirt project, and I was actually really genuinely impressed by that. I was genuinely surprised with how well researched the pattern was, so I have high hopes for this project. You know, this doesn't have to convince polite society that I'm not, in fact, a time traveler from the 21st century. So the next project, which I have had in mind for nearly a year now, is I have this long red cape that I bought at a secondhand shop in Edinburgh a couple of years ago, and it is one of my favorite things to wear. It makes me feel like positively a wizard swooshing down the street, and I kind of want one in black. So I want to pattern that cape and then reproduce that cape. I already know Burnley and Trowbridge carry a really great heavyweight wool felt coating. Felt broadcloth is what it's called. The patterning of this actually can happen quite soon. Anyway, so the next project that I'm also really keen to do is the idea of this cycling jacket, which Truly Victorian calls it a ripple jacket. So I actually have a lot of this beautiful burgundy tweed, which I'm actually not sure if it's going to be too heavy for this or not. It might be, just because the sleeves get quite densely gathered. Anyway, I'm gonna play with fabrics in a minute, but this may end up being a beautiful red jacket, which is the most predictably on-brand thing you could possibly expect from me, but like, what else did you expect from me? Regardless, this is a silhouette that I desire in my wardrobe. I kind of am hype about the idea of making a pair of cycling breeches. Are you tired of this period? Because I'm definitely not. So the princess skirt is also another pattern that I have from Truly Victorian, and this is like going in the opposite direction of the spectrum from the breeches and split skirt. I actually have no idea what I'd even make this out of. It probably wants to be something fairly lightweight. This could actually be really striking in black, but we will see. These gored skirts look really cool with a vertical stripe. The forward-facing seam is cut on the straight grain, and the backmost facing seam is cut slightly on the bias. You get a really cool effect where you have almost a chevron between each seam, because you have the straight grain of the forward seam and then the bias grain of the backward facing seam. So you kind of get a little like V-shaped pattern evenly like through every gore. That works really, really well, even on walking skirt patterns, which only have usually about 5 panels to them. With a gored skirt like this with 10 panels, it could look really, really, really cool with a stripe. I'm still having a slight existential crisis over that pinstripe that I bought on my fabric shopping adventure. I have enough definitely to make it into a waistcoat. There was quite a substantial amount of enabling in the comments of that video saying that, yeah, you should go back and get the rest of it so that you can make the walking skirt. And then I had an idea of, wow, how cool of a video would that be? Because I already have done a waistcoat project on video, but how cool of a different spin on that video would that be if I could make a full Edwardian suit, like a pinstripe suit, but like Edwardian and like a lady's style suit. So like have the bottom bit be a skirt and I could have the top bit be the waistcoat, and it would be really cool. This pinstripe, again, will work really, really well with the skirt because, as I was just saying about the stripe thing, you know, if I make a walking skirt out of the pinstripes, I'll get that really cool chevron effect where all the seams meet. And that with the darts in the waistcoat, because when you make a shaped waistcoat, you have to pull in the fabric at the waist, which creates, again, more chevroning. It just looks really, really, really cool. Fate will decide whether or not this project actually happens. If the fabric is still there, if there's enough of it, I think I will need probably at least 4, if not 5 meters, unless if I do the princess skirt as the bottom half of this Edwardian suit skirt, that's kind of killing 2, no, I don't like that expression. It's eating 2 slices of bread at one time. So if I do the princess skirt as the bottom half of this, that kind of fulfills 2 projects with 1 project. It's kind of pointless because with a waistcoat, you won't see the raised top of the princess skirt, unless instead of a waistcoat, I do like an Eton jacket. And the jacket can actually be the ripple bodice jacket. Wait, that's really killing like eating 3 slices of bread at once. I'm not sure that I'll have enough fabric for that because I think I need at least 2, if not 3 yards. Plus the princess skirt requires at least 5, probably 5.5. Roughly 8, if not 8.5 meters of fabric for the entire thing, which I'm not even sure there was enough of that pinstripe on the bolt. I make no promises as to what this project is going to be, but this project I am definitely super hype about. This project is standing by. I don't feel like I can really move forward with this project yet until I go to see what the situation with the fabric is. Moving on to like actual proper reconstruction work, because all of those previous garments have kind of been wardrobe projects, i.e. things that I will make that I will actually wear, and I will endeavor to make as close to the history as I possibly can, but the reconstruction projects, no questions asked, have to be as verifiably historical as I can possibly make them within the confines, obviously, of the 21st century, as well as my knowledge and the knowledge of what is currently available right now. I feel like these reconstructions are super valuable because I learned a lot about the practical history of dress, how long things take to make, what effects different materials have on one another, as well as just like the manual labor that goes into these things. So for example, when I was making my first pair of 17th century stays, one of the things that I never thought about when making stays, your hands get wrecked. There is no such thing as having really nice, beautiful hands if you are, I mean, if you're doing hand sewing every day of your life, but especially if you're a stay maker, especially when you reach the point where you're doing the binding and you've got the sharp edges of the boning coming out the bottom, there is blood. But that's not something that you would be aware of because you see in the portraiture and you see extant stays were just so ubiquitous. Everyone had them, everyone wore them. You kind of would not really have an appreciation for the amount of physical labor that went into these things and kind of almost what a feat of human labor, I guess it is, to produce that many pairs of stays. There's like hundreds of historical reconstructions that I want to do. Most primarily, obviously, starting with this pair of, well, 1780s stays. This is the beginning of what will hopefully become an entire layers and layers and layers of future 18th century projects. So I'm a little bit hung up on the next reconstruction project. I'm not entirely sure yet where I'm going with this. So I really want to do another 15th century project. This time I'm starting from ground floor. I need to start with the understructures. There's simultaneously something thrilling about the Victorian period, Edwardian period, where you have literal manuals that tell you how to do every specific step and like give you the dress pattern so that you can actually literally reconstruct the thing for yourself. But there's also something thrilling about kind of not knowing anything and piecing together from what evidence you can find. So that's kind of where I am with my reconstruction endeavors. Obviously there's a lot more than that I would like to do, but these are the things that I'm going to focus on primarily. Obviously the reconstruction work is stuff that I have to do a lot slower, especially the pre-19th century stuff has to all be done by hand, and this is not something that can be produced as weekly content as much as I wish it could, but alas. Good morning, fair friends. It is now the next weekend. We have all of our, not all of our, we have some of our, we have a small selection of the amount of projects from our master project list designed, planned out. And so today's task is to go ahead and start choosing materials. I'm going to go through the fabrics that I have in my stash, the fabrics that I purchased in the Garment District vlog, which you may or may not have seen from a couple of weeks ago, trimmings, notions, all that fun stuff, and just make some notes on my design sheets if there are any materials that I need to go and purchase more of, whether online or out in Garment Districts, such as more of that pinstripe for the Victorian walking suit. So I have gone ahead and I have laid out all of the fabrics in my stash that I have substantial yardage of, slash fabrics that I have loved and collected, but have not necessarily had a use for as of yet. Now that I have a bunch of projects, hopefully I can put some of these fabrics to use. There are some of them which I have already allocated to projects. For example, this waistcoat fabric, which I bought with the express intention of making it into a waistcoat. The other thing that I have already decided is to use this tweed here. This will be used for the split skirt. Oh yes, and then I have also bought these linens over here with the intention of making these into the stays. Fabric for the split skirt, yes. I'm having a little bit of indecision with this jacket because I do have a ton of this, and this will certainly make a very nice color jacket. I do low-key have something very similar to this already. I'm not 100% sure that this is going to be too thick or not. I think I may let this be as yet undetermined until I get back to the garment district and figure out what my situation with this is. I feel like we are not so much answering questions with this fabric selection activity so much as raising a million more. Okay, why don't we put a big question mark in the jacket and suit situation. I'm kind of really loving the idea of this fabric, which I've had in my stash for positively ever, as a possibility for these cycling breeches. This is a very, very, very lightweight wool. In terms of moving forward from here, we are definitely moving forward with the split skirt. I will go back to the garment district and see what the situation on the skirt suiting wool, I guess, is. And if that is possible, that will give me 2 more projects to get a start on. In theory, we have fabric for cycling breeches, so that is a project that can also go ahead. The only 2 things that I don't think I will be able to purchase fabric for right now are the princess skirt as well as the cape. But I can get a start on drafting the cape pattern and at least cloning that. The princess skirt, I have the pattern for. I will just eventually buy some fabric for that. Ladies and gentlefolk, they did, in fact, have more of the pinstripe. Not only did they have more of the pinstripe, they had so much more of the pinstripe that they actually had 6 meters of the pinstripe. And I only really needed 5, but there were 6 meters, and the last like half yard had a little bit of staining on the end of it, so he gave me all of it for, I think, the price of 5. I may actually have enough of this to do the princess skirt. 6 meters of this and 1 meter of that. So hypothetically, I might have enough fabric to do the ripple bodice and the princess skirt out of the pinstripe. I'm still undecided. What my next plan of action right now is I'm going to finish cutting out the rest of my pattern shapes here. I'm then going to do a little bit of experimenting, laying out all of this yardage and just laying my pattern pieces on top of the yardage, seeing exactly how much fabric that I have of this, as well as a couple other cuts of yardage that I have in my stash that might do for some of this stuff. I also, by the way, ended up finding a really nice cotton. Not the shop that I bought the pinstripe in, but the one next door. I didn't realize until I went to go get a cut. It's actually double width. I asked for 7 meters, but I ended up only getting 5, but that's kind of the equivalent of 10 meters of cotton. And I got it for 25 pounds, which was actually pretty reasonable. So I'm very pleased about this. I have a lot of just basic petticoat, corset cover, undergarment projects that I would like to work on. So having this cotton is going to be really nice. I'm going to throw this in the wash, pre-wash it a bit in advance. Oh my God, pressing all of this is going to be not a good time, but you know what? We're gonna deal. This is a project for another day. Let us get our pattern situation figured out so that we can actually definitively assign fabrics to things. Friends, behold, look at this. I have managed to get both the princess skirt as well as the ripple bodice, all on just this one, 6-meter length of material. This is, I should also point out, very, very generously laid out. I also will need to do some pattern matching on this because it's a stripe. I will want the stripes to go in very particular points of the garment to meet up and do that nice little V-shaped chevron-y thing. So there's plenty of room to play with that. I've also, these patterns do include seam allowance. So there's plenty of working room in here too, which means, oh my god, this is the best news ever. I can not only do the princess skirt and the ripple bodice, I can also get a waistcoat out of this. So I can effectively make a Victorian 3-piece suit out of this fabric. Oh my god, I am so excited about this. Not that I really think that has a point because the waistline of the princess skirt goes up high enough that it will be concealed underneath the waistcoat, but I'm actually ready now to get started on 3 sewing projects with this fabric, as well as I definitely have enough material of this. I'm not even going to check to get started on the split skirt, so that is definitely ready to happen. A heckin' ton of cotton ready for pre-washing, so this will also be able to produce some nice shiny new sewing projects. So on that very exciting note, I think I'm going to go ahead and end this vlog here. If you would like to see more of these random just in the workroom vlogs, do let me know. I can do those. Thanks for joining me on this whatever it was. I hope you got a little bit of crafty creative work done yourself, or not, just enjoyed the vibes, and I shall see you anon, as we say.
They see me rolling, they hating, patrolling and trying to catch me riding dirty,